Ariel, welcome to Mitiga Mic.
Hi, Brian. Good to be here. How are you?
I'm doing great, man, and it's so wonderful to have you on the show. Let's just kind of kick things off with who are you and what exactly is it that you do?
So, my name is Ariel Parnes. I'm one of the three co-founders, COO at Mitiga. And as a COO, I wear three different hats, I would say. One being the COO at Mitiga, my focus is on customers. Also known as post-sales, anything from deployment, onboarding, customer journey support, product adoption, managed services, renewals, and upsells. That's my focus and also my passion. Um, as I co-founder, I'm also some sort of an individual contributor doing different things depending on what is needed. So I'm very much involved in sales, both leading and participating in sales calls or meetings or conference and events. I try to contribute with my own content, this meeting, but also others, and uh, uh, you know, uh, blog posts and and articles and stuff like that. Partnerships that I'm very fond of and believe in the industry, so I'm very much involved in that. And generally speaking, as a co-founder, I'm also deeply involved in the vision of the company. And I think my main contribution to it is connecting the dots between, and probably we'll talk about connecting the dots, but connecting the dots between what the field is saying, what customers and prospects are asking for, and what we are doing, making sure that there is always a feedback cycle so that we can be constantly improving in the value that we're providing to the field, to the industry, to our customers.
Or easier way to put that, Ariel, is you do everything. You do absolutely everything, and it's pretty amazing.
Uh,
I've been with the company for a little less than a half a year. Uh, I've had the pleasure of working with a number of our partners and our customers and prospects, all of whom interact with you. And certainly, you're a legend in the space. You're able to work with everybody across the field, technical and non-technical alike. So it's such a pleasure to have you. And then on the other side, you're constantly blogging and writing articles and talking about cyber war and a great number of things. So you have this really unique background, which I think positions you so well for this type of a leadership role. So maybe let's even go prior to Mitiga and give us a little bit of background on your career and sort of what led up to this, and then of course how you met the other two co-founders and put Mitiga together.
yeah, sure. And we can go back, 30 years back and start from the very beginning of my journey into the world of cyber and technology, even before it was known, this term or this type of terms. So I started as, a young teenager playing with devices, electronic devices, disassembling and assembling them back, and then later on realized that uh, software provides much more room for creativity, and it's easier to build and destroy and build again. So I moved into software and started programming. The first computer I had was a Commodore 16 kilobytes of memory. Who would imagine these days? I don't think people understand what that means, but it was a very basic yet powerful device that you could, as a young, teenager, it, there was almost no limits of what you could do there with a basic knowledge of BASIC. That was the
Yep.
programming language, um, and passion for that. So this is how I started my journey in software, um, and then later on moved to different programming languages and devices and computers and also had my period of time playing as a kind of a hacker, developing my own um, very naive attacks just to try them with friends and then brag about what I can do. Nothing much more than that. And then I joined, as any other high school um, student, started my military service in Israel, in the IDF, in a unit called 8200. Back then, it wasn't a very well-known or famous unit as it is today, but it was there, and I had the privilege to start my military service in a very unique period of time in the unit 8200, very similar to the NSA in the US, the GCHQ in the UK, and other agencies, is what is known as the SIGINT unit, signal intelligence, basically providing intelligence based on signals collected from the air. And when I joined the unit, um, I was lucky enough to be there when the unit started exploring different ways to provide intelligence in what they used to call special operations and later on cyber operations. And I was just there with a bunch of other super talented people working alongside with them to build the first capabilities in the cyber domain. This is how I found myself involved in cyber very early in my journey as a developer and then operator. And later on, as I extended my military service every couple of years, I was supposed to retire or not retire, but finish my military service. And there was always something interesting to do. So from stage to stage, from milestone to milestone, I had the privilege to be exposed to different challenges in the space of cyber. Again, as a developer, as an operator, later on as a leader, and so I was able to have this very exciting military service for 23 years. Touching different aspects of cybersecurity, and then I retired about 6 years ago as a colonel.
Now, did you know Tal and Ofer before you retired, or was that afterwards?
I did not actually. When you look at the cyber, I would say, ecosystem or network. We were kind of both operating for many years in two sides of the network, completely or almost not connected. The security network, 200 and other units, we had our own kind of trajectory and network and community, and the other one where Ofer and Tal operated the private industry. And so that was actually what piqued my interest when I started engaging with them. We were introduced through common friends, and so the fact that they were operating in cybersecurity for so many years in a completely different world was both intriguing and also had a unique opportunity for synergy, which through the years we realized was exactly that. The fact that we both came from different places, or the three of us came from different places, different experiences, even though we operated in a very closed ecosystem.
Now, when you met, was the idea, wow, there's some great synergy, and I think I would like to think of an idea with these guys and try to build something? Or were you already starting to think, wow, there's this opportunity, which later on, of course, became Mitiga, but this opportunity to create this company to address this issue? Was the idea of Mitiga there before, or did it kind of come together after the three of you sort of collectively started discussing what the problems were in the space?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say, generally speaking, when I think about this type of journeys, to me, even though I did have an idea of what I wanted to do, what space I wanted to innovate, and what did I want to bring to the industry, which was, in retrospective, in more or less in the same space that Mitiga ended up in. To me, more important than what it was with whom. And
Mm.
so, to the extent that I was open to explore complete different paths and ideas, um, uh, uh, if I when I found the right partners rather than the other way around. Um, and that was for me, and it's still a key element in what I do and how I do, is to with whom I collaborate and partner. And these two guys, Offer and Tal, other than the fact that we had synergies and bring different experiences, the most important thing was that we had a common ground in terms of values and aspirations and um, um, and personalities, in the sense that we all agreed on the principle of what the partnership is, what we want to bring to the industry, what motivates us, um, and obviously a kind of interpersonal connection that was very, and is still very, very powerful. To me, that was the basic element. And on top of it, yeah, I came with a certain idea around post or right of the boom, if you wish, the idea of, the basic concept that um, you can't really prevent attacks. And so all this focus on trying to build better walls around the environments and improving locks and closing windows, literally, wasn't to me the area where I thought the real value for the industry exists. Um, and also, growing in this ecosystem or this unit where we were tasked to hack or penetrate the most protected organizations, and there was always a way in. It was just a matter of the right creativity, resources, and time, but there was always a way in, no matter how well protected these organizations were. And I'm talking about the most protected organizations in the globe, with knowing and expecting organizations like 8200 and others to target them.
Yeah.
And so the fact that there was always a way in, and the fact that the industry was so much focused on preventing attacks, to me was a gap that I wanted to fill with concepts and ideas and innovation in the space of mitigation, in the space of um, being able to reduce or remove completely the impact of the unpreventable attack.
Yeah. And so many great things to unpack there. The first is you came together with Tal and Ofer, and the three of you said, "Hey, we want to work together. We feel there's some great synergies. There was some commonality in your background, not direct overlap, but certainly some commonality there. But you put together this sort of kind of philosophy of the types of people that you wanted to work with and hire. And I can tell you, when I first started looking at Mitiga and speaking to you and the other founders and just other individuals, something very interesting and actually very hard to do out of the dozen or so startups that I've done, you've been able to kind of keep that sort of quality, that camaraderie, that friendship, that common goal, where it's like we're all a band of pirates and we're sailing the same direction, right? Doing the same thing. And that's quite unique. And that's very hard to do. And I think that speaks to sort of that foundational philosophy that you and Ofer and Tal had put together. So kudos on that, because again, I've seen enough of this where I know how hard that can be. But the other thing is this whole idea of left of boom and right of boom. And of course, it sounds so wonderful to move everything left of boom and stop bad things before they happen. And of course, you can do that to some extent. Uh, but the three of you, and especially you, and you said it so eloquently, is that uh, anybody can be penetrated. It's not a question of if, ever. And these are the most sophisticated, most secure organizations in the world. And you came from a very high level leadership and organization that focused just on that. So if anybody can attest to the truthfulness of that statement, it's you. And understanding that, yes, there has to be a way to detect and respond in an effective and rapid way. And of course, at Mitiga, it just makes sense. We live in this space, and cloud detection and response, of course, has to go hand in hand with preventative measures. You can't have one without the other, just like you can't have night without day or good without evil, right? The two just coexist. So with that, kind of let's circle back around. You came from this amazing background. You meet Tal, you meet Ofer, you create this company, Mitiga, to look at this right of boom, if you will, um, and you decide to focus on cloud. So, what are you seeing, or what did you see then, and what do you see now as some of the biggest issues in cloud security that said, okay, this is the right of boom that we want to go after? Because there was about a million other choices, but what was and what is special about cloud security that's makes this so fundamental?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I want to take a step back and kind of walk you through the way we understood the journey in cloud security through our analysis when we started our journey, and then take it from there. So if we look, I don't know, 20 years back, beginning of cloud computing, and we try to map the progress or the maturity stages in cloud security, I would say the very beginning, the very early stages, most of the kind of uh, concepts around cloud security were, we are going to fully outsource cloud security to the cloud vendor, cloud provider. In other words, I'm moving my assets to Amazon, Microsoft, Salesforce, whoever. They will protect me. They will take care of me, so I don't need to care about security. In some analogy to, I don't need to care about servers, I don't need to care about electricity, I don't need to care about security. Um, and and you'd be surprised. Obviously, that was a very short period of time in the journey of cloud security. Organizations realized that there was a misunderstanding of the concept. This is where the shared responsibility term or concept was introduced and emphasized. We vendors are sharing, we as cloud providers are sharing responsibility with you, the user of our infrastructure or applications. When it comes to security, it's not just us and it's not completely you. We are sharing responsibility. And so, but there was a very short period of time where people thought that as they move to the cloud, they don't need to care about security anymore. You'd be surprised, I still see some companies stuck in that kind of a very initial layer of maturity. The second stage was the stage that I think we're still in it, kind of moving to the third one, which is, okay, we users, cloud adopters realize that we need to take some ownership on security. We are going to invest in preventing and securing our environment so that an attack will not happen. I call it the prevention stage. And it starts to resonate with things that we were talking earlier in our conversation. So if you look at most of the industry, 15, 17, 20 years back, and until I would say a couple of years, maybe a year or two, most of the industry, most of the innovation, most of the budget, most of the frameworks, practitioners' talks, everything was focused on prevention, on assessing the posture of my environment, finding misconfigurations, making sure that I'm using SaaS and cloud correctly so I don't let the attackers break in. Um, and that lasted for several years, again, more than 10, maybe 15. And when we look at what happened during these 15 or so years, is that lots of innovation and solutions emerged targeting this need, and yet attacks and breaches continue to happen. And so at the beginning, you could say, okay, we're not mature yet. But even until recently, organizations that have the cutting edge technology um, in prevention and posture management are still breached. Um, and attackers break in, or more than that, just log in. Um, and that leads or pushes the industry to the next stage of maturity, which is the realization that in the cloud, especially, but generally speaking, and you can't really prevent attacks from happening, and you need to build to have. And you talked about that. To have a robust cybersecurity strategy, you need to have two components: the prevention and the mitigation. This is where the industry is shifting. I would say in the recent 2 years or so, um, moving towards a more evolved and developed strategy in cloud security that combines both efforts on reducing the probability of an attack to happen, as well as efforts on reducing the impact of the attack, understanding and knowing that the probability will never be zero, and enough to see, suffice to see what's happening in the industry to realize that. And so this is the journey that we identified. And when we started our journey about 4 years ago, we kind of were able to see several years ahead. And when most of the industry was talking about prevention, we started leading the campaign of mitigation, hence the name, and saying, yeah, prevention is great, but you need more than that. And that was one of the foundations in our journey. The other thing that I wanted to emphasize, and we talked about the fact that advanced organizations like 8200 and threat actors or actors and others are able to build very sophisticated attacks and penetrate every organization or any organization they choose. When it comes to the cloud, and kind of an eye-opener moment for me in the beginning of my career after I retired from the industry, I was so focused on these advanced organizations, thinking, APTs and very sophisticated attacks. When it comes to cloud, the nature of the connectivity of the cloud, cloud and SaaS, makes that statement that every organization can be breached or attacked 10 times more relevant because of the how simple it is to break in or log in to a cloud environment, and from there move laterally within, I don't know, minutes, and get access to crown jewels, things that would take lots of efforts and very advanced tools and implants and things like that. When it comes to cloud and SaaS environments, it's significantly easier. So the combination of the nature of cyberspace, where every organization is can be breached, and the fact that the cloud makes it even easier, despite all the efforts on prevention, that was kind of a very fundamental moment in our journey in building Mitiga, and led um, to the design of our solution focused on that, on cloud and detection response. And a few years later, bringing generative AI into the game even multiplies the power of these statements much more, because now with generative AI, not only defenders, but mostly attackers can do much more in quantity and quality. And we just need to read the news to see implementations of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You spelled it out so well. There's this, whether I'm in Azure, GCP, or even Oracle or whatever the case might be for my infrastructure. So I've got that piece. And sometimes it's almost like a set it and forget it, even though it's very well spelled out from Microsoft and Google and Amazon, like what they do and do not do when it comes to security. Often, sometimes people go, oh, well, it's taken care of. And then you add SaaS on that, Salesforce, Workday, GitHub. And then you add identity, whatever identity solutions, of which there's many, and most organizations have multiple. And then you add these big frameworks like Microsoft 365 or Workspace, and you've got all these different pieces in there. And the thing about them is, and you mentioned this, is they're all meshed together. And it's not just your organization that's meshed, because you're meshed with one SaaS application that might be meshed with another organization's as well. So different partners, supply chains, there's impact through these things. So everything's put together. So what makes the cloud so powerful also makes it so vulnerable, right? What makes it so great also opens it up to people that want to abuse it. And the notion that historically there hasn't been detection and response at that level that meets what we've been doing on-prem with disparate solutions over the last decade or two, it's unfathomable because it's so much more complicated and so much faster. And then you add another variable to that, which is AI. And we talk about vendors like Mitiga. We use AI. We have a lot of AI capabilities internally for triage and analytics and things like that. That's great. And there's attackers that are using AI to increase the volume and the velocity and the variety of attacks that they're doing. Some good, some bad, but certainly there's a lot more of them coming a lot quicker from people that maybe historically haven't been able to build these types of attacks. And I would liken it to the early days of security, where you had people that created real exploits, and then you had script kiddies that plugged in an IP address and hit go, right? Or ran a script, a very basic script. So I think that's making AI on that side. But there's this variable now with infrastructure, with identity, with SaaS, and that's AI. That's organizations that have AI infrastructure and trying specifically to protect that and poisoning all the other things. I don't want to get into all the details there, but protecting that AI infrastructure. And this has just been picking up so rapidly. And I've yet to talk to a customer that doesn't bring this up and talk about this notion of, you know, artificial intelligence detection and response, specifically protecting my AI infrastructure. This was not even real. It wasn't really a conversation a year ago, and it certainly wasn't even mentioned 2 years ago. But today, it seems to be on the tip of everybody's tongue. So the way you spelled that out, I think, was very eloquent. But let's, you've been doing this for a while, both pre Mitiga and of course since helping to found Mitiga. But what are some interesting stories from the trenches that you can share? Of course, anonymized, as you're aware. But maybe there's one or two cases that stand out that kind of represent or are emblematic of this issue, and how solutions like Mitiga were able to address that, either on the CDR in general or maybe even on the AI DR side of it.
Yeah, we have cool stories, I would say, almost on a daily basis. So just to look at the 2 to 3 weeks, last 2 to 3 weeks, we can pick. Let's take three different stories, all related to what we're reading in the news, and things that we at Mitiga are, seeing in real life. One of them is a story of a customer of ours who hired a IT person, remote job, like everybody does, only to realize that it was part of a North Korean campaign to infiltrate employees in key companies in the US, steal information, steal money. It's all over the news now. A huge campaign still active out there, leveraging obviously AI and deepfake capabilities to allow North Korean actors to look like or sound like locals and be able to be hired. And so this customer of ours gets a phone from law enforcement Mr. CISO, we wanted to inform you that this and that is known to be a North Korean agent or North Korean actor, and you need to, fire him immediately. Um, and and that is a scary moment, right, for an organization. I'm talking about financial industry, super sensitive. And so obviously the immediate reaction to that is disconnecting access and devices and credentials and all that. That goes without saying. But then immediately the question is, what was the damage? And when you think about what was the damage, it leads to conducting an audit slash forensic investigation with pressure because the regulator is waiting. Obviously, they were aware, customers, board, um, partners, they're waiting to hear what the risk was, what the impact was. And so naturally, without solutions like Mitiga, it is a process that can take weeks to start gathering, if at all you have the fingerprints and footprints. And in most of the cases, organizations don't have that visibility across the entire cloud, identity, and SaaS to trace back and see, everything that this identity or person did. With Mitiga, it was just a click of a button. And we just got, this phone from the customer saying, thank you for that. They just, click of a button and they get a full report of everything that this person did, with what, when, where, how, going back to the beginning of the employment until the very last minute, mapping connections that allowed the security team to expand the investigation and see if there were others. Luckily enough, there weren't, and the infiltration or the breach was contained. But having the ability to go back to the stakeholders, again, board, customers, regulators, within minutes of a notification like that, with an initial assessment, and then within hours, a full assessment, 99% the same that the initial assessment was. With a click of a button, understanding everything that this person did is invaluable in a case like that. And for us, it was a great satisfaction knowing that a customer like this customer was protected, and so value, and all across the board in the company. When we have this kind of stories, it's a reason we're doing what we're doing. So celebration is there, and so that's a great story. You read the news and then you live and breathe that in Mitiga, and maybe sometime it's the other way around. You first live and breathe that and then you read the news. The other similar story is customer of ours that had a case of the attack on Salesforce, run by Shiny Hunters, UNC 6040, you name it, different names. I don't want to go into these nuances, but basically a campaign that is all over the news as well. Very smart attackers that use simple but efficient techniques and tactics, call IT support with what is known as vishing, voice phishing, to get credentials, to be able to log in to Salesforce and steal sensitive data. We're seeing that in the news now. Recently, another, I think it was Google, victim of one of these type of attacks, and Sephora, just to name a couple of them. One that I know because it's Google, and the other one because I have a daughter at their relevant age, and so many others. Tens of organizations being breached the same way. With Mitiga, this customer was able to detect the suspicious activity and stop it before it materialized, which is basically what we are here to do. You can't really prevent 100% of this, this type of attack where you just fool a person, get credentials, and log in. And once you log in, it's very hard to stop it, to prevent it, because you have the ability to behave like any other um, um, insider operator. And then you need to be very careful very smart in how you find these anomalies, this behavior that is not normal, having the right context, um, and to identify that and stop that before it materializes. We were able to do that with Mitiga, where again, this type of stories that we get from customers, thank you, and let's make sure that we have not just Salesforce covered, but all the other SaaS applications that we didn't include in our system yet. And so that kind of recognition, second to none. And a similar set of examples is with Scatter Spider. Again, the same concept, more than a couple of customers of us trying to be or being potential victims of Scatter Spider. Scatter Spider is a cluster of threat actors that operate in a certain way, leveraging primarily very smart social engineering to steal credentials, log in, again, not break in, log in, and once they're in, move laterally and steal data. And with Mitiga, we were able more than once to detect this very early in the journey, decode the potential attack, stop it before it even raised a concern. When this type of stories, and these are again stories from the recent couple of weeks, happen, it's just a booster for us to keep building our capabilities, extending our coverage, and improving and adding more of this very unique solution that we're bringing to the industry.
Yeah. No, those were great stories, and sort of the technical foundational components behind that, which we're not really going to get in here, but having a back-end data lake that's supporting petabytes of data from all these disparate solutions, and being able to decode those solutions and deal with all the little isms of a Salesforce versus a Workday versus a CloudTrail versus this, and what's turned on and not turned on. And I mean, there's a plethora of complexity that goes into being able to say, oh, this is a bad person, and we're tracking them across these solutions, and Mitiga is going to respond. So it's I hear this time and time again from people that leverage Mitiga is that they get a benefit. They're buying a result. It's not necessarily the need for them to drill down and understand the complexity the way people used to have to do with things like SIM solutions and things like that. They're getting the results, and they can do threat hunting and all these other things and do their own query and analysis, and that's fantastic. And we can also help augment that, as can our partners. But they're getting the result of all that heavy lifting and analytics, which is within a platform, which is really a game changer. And I think most organizations today are looking for the benefit juxtaposed to more features and more functions and things like that, which is fantastic. So Ariel, as we wrap up here, I just have one more question for you. And succinctly as it could be, but what are some of the steps that an organization, somebody listening to this that's in a security role in a company, and cloud's a part of that, and they're trying to get their arms around that, they're kind of struggling. What are some sort of fundamental steps that they can take to kind of move the ball forward as it relates to improving their cloud security strategy?
Yeah, I think I would like to focus on two recommendations that I think are fundamental. One is more process, human, culture oriented, and the other one is more technical, technology oriented. The first one, mind the gap or close the gap between security and cloud. In a nutshell, the evolution of cloud opened the gap between security practitioners, generally speaking, and there are organizations where it doesn't happen, but in too many organizations, there is the gap between security practitioners who understand security primarily on traditional on-prem technologies and the IT cloud DevOps cloud architects team who understand cloud. And that gap creates opportunities for attackers and threat actors, because where the focus on security is, there is a lack of understanding and knowledge and expertise in cloud. Where the understanding in cloud and knowledge and expertise exists, there is a lack of focus on security. And so for a leader in cybersecurity, CISO or the like, I would urge them to mind and close the gap between these two kind of functions, either through sharing knowledge and reorganizations and processes and people moving from one side to the other, and so on and so forth. But that to me is a key kind of root cause for many of the attacks that we're seeing, of the breaches that we're seeing out there. And the other recommendation or step would be about the visibility. That's more of a technical recommendation. Visibility is everything. You can't protect what you don't see. And context is everything. The broader your context is, the more accurate your assessment is. You can be wrong by thinking that a certain activity is bad or good if you just look at one signal. It's harder to be wrong if you have two signals. You need to be wrong in the first and you need to be wrong in the second. The third even reduces it more. The broader the context, the lower the probability that you're wrong in your assessment, whether or not what you're seeing is bad or good. And so improving the context or expanding the context to a panoramic visibility, that's the end goal, seeing everything all the way from cloud, identity, and SaaS, and outside of these realms, is to me a fundamental capability that significantly pushes your ability to protect your cloud in an efficient and effective way.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Ariel, thank you so much. It was so great having you on Mitiga Mic. You're always a pleasure to talk with and just hear your stories. I always learn something new every time I talk with you. So again, thanks for being part of the show.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much.